Hey guys, welcome back. Jim and Doug Show, January 23rd, 2019, episode 48. So I want to introduce my substitute host for today. My partner is on assignment, so I'd like to welcome my brother Steve.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for having me, Jim.
It's great to have you. So let's get right into it. Obviously, let's start off with the NFL playoffs. Um, Actually, I think they were both great games. A little bit of controversy in it, so why don't we start off with the pink elephant in the room?
Would that be the Rams Saints? We'll
That
lead with that.
that would be the Rams and Saints. So, like I said, it was a great game, but obviously, I guess the number one topic is the missed call. So I don't think anyone can deny that was a bad call. So let's talk about that, Steve. What do you think?
Well, obviously, it was a bad call. I think anybody watching it saw how blatant it was. Can't understand how they don't call it. However, it's a 60-minute game. I think a lot of focus is on that call. The bottom line is the Rams came back. They're playing in a hostile environment in New Orleans, which is probably one of, I would
Toughest places
say,
to play.
top three. Seattle being one of them, debatable on another. But who dat home up how they were early in the game, and the Rams just came back. And I think one of the big storylines is Jared Goff and what this kid did, the poise he showed. And I know you and I off air have had this discussion about his maturation and growth in such a short period of time. And here he is. I think he's probably the youngest kid to lead a team to a Super Bowl. So,
It was really great to see this kid. I mean, I had somebody call me and said that's a bold prediction. You're taking the Rams, and I said, well, Goff has to play flawless, and I think, like I said, I've been touting him for a year, saying one of the biggest dramatic comebacks of any player. I mean, his first year in the league, he looked ridiculous, and a lot of people say yes, but he got Sean McVay now, and I'll give him credit. Either he instilled the confidence in him, but Sean McVay doesn't throw the passes. But what a turnaround for this kid, and he really showed up big on Sunday. He really did.
right. I think the late fourth quarter play where he rolled right and just winged it to get that important first down, I thought that was indicative of the growth of him. Back to him being a rookie, looking like he's never played the game before. Of course, I think our standard bearer, of course, was Eli, where Eli was made fun of by Tiki Barber and his other teammates, and just watching it. And I think after year two or year three, I think the jury was still out on Eli. And I think the stark difference here is you can just see the confidence of this kid. He can make all the throws. He's got the composure. I think his post-game interviews were very impressive. I thought he carried himself well.
Very well.
And I really don't dismiss his chances in the Super Bowl. And obviously he's going against the GOAT of all time. But with McVay and the Rams, I kind of think they have a puncher's chance in this game. New England aside.
Well, we'll get to that. We'll talk about our picks. Like I said, it's a little less than 2 weeks before the game, and we'll get to that. And just getting back to the game itself. We talked about it, and the big play, and yes, it probably would have given the Saints, assuming the kid makes the field goal and time has run out. But when you look at it overall in that game, the Saints rushed for 41 yards.
Good.
And, so there's a lot of factors to take into play here. So, yes, it was a bad call. We will all concede that. But, like I said, the Rams stepped up when they had to. Goff did. And, not sure what went on with Todd Gurley and so forth. But he did score the one touchdown. I think he got sat by McVay because he dropped two critical balls early in the game, which could have taken the Rams right out of it. But um,
Which makes me more impressed with McVay to have the balls to sit down a stud running back like that. Now, granted, they have this C.J. Anderson they signed late, who's played great, but
great,
you can't put stock in that this guy is going to carry the load in place of a Gurley.
yep.
Back to the Rams defense. Listen, I mean, they crushed Drew Brees on the interception. I mean, that goes to the pass rush. It goes to this Aaron Donald, who literally is the defensive player of the year. This guy is unbelievable.
Without question. Without question.
So I think the Rams defense kind of gets lost in the mix here from their offense, and hence, they're playing in the Super Bowl in 2 weeks. So, it was an absolute team effort. And the post game too with McVay. I don't care. This guy's 32 years old. This guy's a football coach.
He sure is.
And my other thought about McVay is, what are the Washington Redskins thinking right now? This guy is on their sideline as the offensive coordinator or quarterback coach for a couple years at least. Let him walk out the door. And I tell you, this guy is 32 years old. You can bet the farm he's going to be a head coach for 25, 30 more years, probably minimum.
Oh, he's all about football. I mean, he is a young Bill Belichick, where he just lives and breathes this stuff. And for him to make that call and that fake punt, I mean, you can't look past that. Of course, if it doesn't make it, you're a bum, and you made a bad call, but it caught me off guard, certainly. It was still early in the game, and that could have ended the game right there. That's how far away they were from losing the game altogether. So, what a gutsy call, and it worked out right for him. So, give him a lot of credit, and tip my hat to McVay and the Rams, and we'll talk about that next week, obviously.
And one other point, let's not forget Greg Zuerlein. How about hitting a 57-yard game-winning field goal?
A 48-yarder to tie it.
Right, but this guy's been money for the Rams all year, and
big time.
I just wanted to acknowledge you hit 57 yards, and that thing was good from 65 too.
I know, and it was right down the middle.
And that's doesn't get any more pressure packed than that. So you got to tip your hat to the Rams, and the with the Saints crying wolf, and I get their position, but time to move on. Spilt milk aside.
And they were the two best teams in the NFC, no question about it. And so I don't think we're gonna send an inferior team to play the Patriots in the Super Bowl. So, like I said, it was a great game, and let's move on. Let's move on to game number 2, which was also a phenomenal game. And I felt all along, like I said, I know Patrick Mahomes, he's going to be the MVP this year. He had a great year. He's a great kid and real poise and so forth. But he was going up against, like Steve said before, the GOAT, one of the greatest of all time. No question about it. And it was hard for me to bet against Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. And, they showed us why. And, let's touch base on that game because it was unbelievable. I mean, 38 points in the fourth quarter was unheard of, never happened before, and it was exciting, and the game could have gone either way all day long. And when I look back on it and I think about the final drive, and we can talk until we're blue in the face about the coin flip, and that maybe the rules should be changed, both teams should get the thing, but the way Tom Brady moved that team down and completed those passes, and they weren't easy passes. I know Bob Sutton got fired, yesterday because he gave up that touchdown, but that wasn't bad defense. That was just great Brady and great clutch play.
So here are my observations. Shame on me. Why would I, in my mind, bet against Belichick and Brady? I just think because it was on the road at KC, the way KC was playing all year, I gave them a slight edge. New England goes up 14-0. You think the game is over. to Belichick's credit, once again, the game plan on that is what? Keep the ball out of Mahomes, keep it away from Kelsey, and shut down
Tyreek Hill.
Tyreek Hill. And what did they do?
All of them.
All of them. And if you look at the time of possession, New England had the ball for literally 40 minutes to maybe KC's 20. But the Pats defense is not everything it was in the past, because KC had scored 31 points in those 20 minutes. There was a stat, I think they flashed that early fourth quarter, where New England, where Brady, they were up 14-0 at halftime, 72-1, I believe his record is after that, right? Listen, the ball bounces funny ways. The Edelman play on the punt, I got to say, as many times as I looked at it, and as much as I'm anti-New England, respectful of New England.
I don't think it touched
However,
it.
I don't think to be objective, I don't think it touched him either. Again, I don't know what you can attribute to. Nobody hit Brady on that roughing the passer, I could tell you that.
And we know that was a bad call too.
Right.
But that was just.
But again, it does not, these particular plays do not dictate the outcome of the game. Kansas City had it. Listen, the right defensive end lined up literally 2 feet off sides. They get the interception, which they did.
And you don't
the
give
game
Tom,
is over.
And you don't give Tom Brady a second chance. I mean, that's.
But again, as you're watching Brady in that fourth quarter on these late drives, you just look at the calm, cool collectedness. That's it. He knows, he's focused. He knows where he's going with the ball. I got to tip my hat to this Julian Edelman, though. This kid is money. Tough warrior. I think we had seen a 30-30 piece or something on him recently.
We did.
He was a quarterback in college. I think he went undrafted, I want to say. And my God, this guy is a football player in and out, and I have the ultimate respect for him. And listen, I would not be surprised if Edelman goes bananas in the Super Bowl as well.
And we saw, like I said, we talked about the NFC. It had the 2 best teams in the league playing to represent the NFC, and no question we had the 2 best teams in the AFC playing the same game to go to the Super Bowl. And I know people are tired of seeing the Patriots, and I know they kept saying, this isn't one of the best Patriots teams ever, and we'll concede that, when you go down the roster and so forth. But James White comes up big, and Rex Burkhead, he came up big, right. And I mean, that's coaching, So I don't think they were out muscled or anything, and I don't know that Bob Sutton deserved to lose his job on that last drive, because those passes were perfect.
There were a couple things I'd say on that. You could tell Kansas City's defense was so winded, it was unbelievable. I don't know why they didn't use a timeout late in the game there.
Yep.
I don't mean that, means KC's going to win. It's little things like that. Then it became a matchup problem. So Gronkowski splits out left, one-on-one coverage with a guy who basically comes up to his belt, right? Edelman's in the slot on the same side. Pick your poison there. And I'm talking about the pass down to Gronkowski to the 5, maybe 4.
Yeah.
So even if they double coverage Gronkowski on that play, Edelman then is going to slip right through there and hit a pocket, and Brady's going to connect either to him or to Gronkowski like he did. But that just goes to the firepower of New England. And again, I just think the game plan that they came up with, and they stuck to it, was shut down Mahomes, Kelsey, and Hill. That's what they did.
But they were great passes. The one to Gronkowski was perfect.
Absolutely.
The ones over the middle, you can question whether or not they should have let him go over the middle, but the passes were there. The defense wasn't bad. It was just a perfect pass. So.
And in the back of your mind, as you see Andy Reid on the sideline, who hasn't won a thing his whole career, and I think
he's the best coach that's never won anything.
Right, I think he's better than Marty Schottenheimer.
Oh, they both got there.
It's uncanny how just in the back of my mind as the game was getting to overtime, and of course the coin flip. I don't. It doesn't mean much, but the fact that Andy Reid has gone this long, I don't know what to attest to. It's just,
I know.
it's in the back of your mind, or at least it was for me.
I mean, let's
It's
give him
okay.
this at least. He got to a Super Bowl. Marty Schottenheimer never did. So,
Right.
but it was a great game. Both of them were great, and well, we'll circle back. Like I said, it is what it is. You know, some questionable calls, and you know, Stephen and I and my brother, we've talked about this for years. You know, that the quality of officiating in the NFL is
Not good.
mediocre at best, you know, and maybe it's because these guys aren't full-time guys like the NHL guys and so forth, but, you know, each team had their opportunities to win, and I think, you know, the fact that the Rams are playing the Patriots in the Super Bowl is indicative of, you know, just the desire, it's coaching and it's execution, and you know, we'll touch on the game coming up, you know, next week on our show. A little early, point spreads flipping back and forth, and I'm not a big fan of the point spread thing ever since this FanDuel and DraftKings got in bed with the NFL. It just, to me, it just seems crazy. So we pick winners, and we'll touch base on that next week. So let's touch it. Let's move on. Let's talk about Major League Baseball. Forget the Machado, forget the Harper thing, because I don't know where that stuff is.
I'm gonna predict they both sign on Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah, I guess that's
PR
you know.
that they're going to get. Just real quick, I'll just say I think Harper will probably re-sign with the Nationals, and my guess is Machado with the Phillies. That's just my guess.
All right, and I'm gonna
I
just
care
say,
less
like I
either
said,
way, to be honest with you.
either do I. They're both National League teams, so I don't care. But I think Machado's going to the White Sox, and I think Harper's going to the Phillies. But again, that's not the topic of discussion for this week. It's the Hall of Fame, and you know, there were 4 new inductees, and you know, we're going to touch on each and every one of them. First of all, Mariano Rivera. I don't think there's a baseball fan on the planet, Yankee, anti-Yankee guy, who would dispute that this guy belongs in the Hall of Fame.
And unanimously.
And again, let me touch base on my personal opinion on the unanimous thing. I agree. You know, whoever didn't vote for this guy was wrong. But looking back, you know, Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Willie Mays, you know, how these guys, Tom Seaver, were not unanimous decision.
Even up to Ken Griffey a couple years ago.
Just shows, you know, some of the ineptitude of the writers. But I don't think there's, excuse me, any question that Mariano Rivera, not only one of the best relief pitchers in baseball, just one of the best pitchers ever. I mean, when you talk about a .70 ERA from all of the postseasons that this guy participated in, that's unbelievable.
And I don't have the number in front of me. I want to say he pitched, I want to just ballpark it, 153 post-inning innings, something along those
It
lines.
may not be that high, but it's a lot because he was, you know, 1 or 2 here and
But
there.
everybody listening has obviously seen him since '95 when he came up.
Unhittable, just unhittable.
It's unhittable.
You know,
And it's funny because because of the PR blitz about him, you know, I think he was catching with Ramiro Mendoza, just having a long toss on the field. Could have been spring training during the regular season. And he played around with his fingers on one ball, and he threw it to him, and that was the creation of this devastating slider, which was just an unhittable pitch.
Yep.
And you know, so being unanimous, the first major league player to be unanimously elected to the Hall of Fame is obviously in a league of its own.
Well,
But
the
let's
baseball
also-
writers finally got it right.
Right, but for what he did, his role as a relief pitcher, unquestioned the best of all time, the best we've seen, and I really, I would be surprised if somebody could duplicate what he has done in his career.
And listen,
And he's a class act all the way around.
I mean, I was just going to touch on that. I mean, as far as a quality guy and a class act, he did everything right. I mean, he didn't mouth off. He didn't talk. You know, he just let his pitching do the talking for him, and boy, did it do the talking. It spoke loud and hard. So congratulations to number 42. He certainly does go down, and his number deserves to be retired in the Yankee lore and Major League Baseball. I
And
mean,
it'll be the last number 42 inducted to the Hall of Fame.
I mean, and he was so good that even when they retired Jackie Robinson's number, everybody knew he's the only one that was able to wear number 42 before he retired.
Yeah.
That's pretty big. So congratulations to Mo.
Well done.
So, you know, there's a couple other things, and, you know, let's touch on this. So, before we get to the DH, Roy Halladay and Mike Mussina. Now, I'm gonna start this off by saying, no question, Roy Halladay was a great pitcher, but if Mike Mussina had to wait 7 years to get in, then there's no way Roy Halladay should have gotten in on the first ballot. And I think that may have a lot to do posthumously or whatever it was. Great pitcher, Cy Young in both leagues, no question. And, you know, but I looked, and I think he only won 20 games one time.
I think so.
And, you know, to me, that's not overly impressive. And let's go to Mike Mussina, who, again, you know, I think was a great pitcher, Hall of Fame. And, you know, I'm going to get to this in a second about, you know, comparing these to some of the previous guys, the Koufaxes, the Seavers, the Carltons, and so forth. But, you know, Mike Mussina was a great pitcher, and I don't have a problem with him getting in the Hall of Fame. I have more of a problem with Roy Halladay getting in the Hall of Fame on his first ballot if Mike Mussina had to wait 7 years. To me, that doesn't make any sense. Mike Mussina only won 20 games, didn't win 20 games until his last season with the Yankees. But his record was, what, 273 and 150 or something, so, and he was a class act, and so was Halladay, class act. That's my only contention on those two getting in the Hall of Fame. I don't have a problem with Mussina getting in. Is he Seaver? Is he Koufax? Is he Carlton? Is he Gibson? No. But I think the Hall of Fame is no longer about comparing it to what the elite was. And I don't want to say it's the Hall of Mediocrity, but, you know, to compare those guys to some of the previous forefathers of baseball is kind of silly. Your thoughts?
Well, I can't dispute what you're saying. I think Roy Halladay, when I think Hall of Fame, was a Hall of Fame pitcher. Do I think posthumously? Yes, that plays a factor. His stats were great, though. I don't care that he had 203 wins. He won the Cy in both leagues. He pitched a no-hitter in the playoffs. He's a money pitcher all the way.
No question.
First ballot Hall of Fame, do I think of Roy Halladay as a first ballot Hall of Fame? No. So I kind of agree with your point. I think Mike Mussina waited probably the period of time that was due him. The 273, I just looked up. There's only 3 active pitchers right now that actually have over 200 victories. Verlander, 204.
CC.
Cologne, 247. And CC. None of them are getting 300.
Right.
Let's be real. Are all 3 of those Hall of Fame pitchers?
No.
Of those 3, you know, Verlander maybe has...
Oh, Verlander's going to win. He's got a chance to win 30, 40 more games. He's not close to as done as CC.
Right, and he got a ring, and CC's got a ring, and so on. Mussina, I really think, is a better pitcher than he gets credit for.
I put him in the same kind of category as Verlander,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So, I mean, Mussina gets in, Verlander gets in. Does Cologne get in? No chance.
No, not even close.
And as big a CC fan as I am, you know, Hall of Fame is, you know, again, you put him in Seaver's category, Koufax. Nope.
Not even under consideration for me.
And we have to take into account the times and so forth, and I get it, but, you know, that's just my opinion on Halladay. I think he was great, and, you know, Mussina was just as great in his day, And I believe, like I said, if he had to wait 7 years, and Halliday should have had to wait too. But remember, you
And
know,
that goes to the candidates that are up there, and I hate to bring up the Bonds and the Clemens and things like that. But if you look at the other candidates, I think the player position, Larry Walker, I think came in under Schilling, so I think it was Schilling was the next level, Larry Walker. If you look at Larry Walker's numbers, I think Larry Walker makes a case.
yeah, but he played in the National League where the pitching was substandard compared to the American League.
Right,
So,
but of those that were elected in this class, I think they're well deserving.
And-
I don't dispute these selections at all.
and I'm glad that you brought that up because, like I said, when you mentioned Curt Schilling, yeah, he pitched some big games in the postseason, but you're talking Hall of Fame? No way.
Borderline. I'll give him borderline.
I don't put him even in the category of Musina. I mean, or Halliday.
He was a big game pitcher.
I can't see him.
I'm going borderline.
He's going to get in because of
Yeah.
the bloody sock.
So,
He's getting in.
I could be convinced either way. I don't think of him,
No.
on the criteria of what a Hall of Famer is, but I can see him getting in. Do I think, from my own perspective and eyes? No, I would say no.
I would say
I
no
would
too.
say he just falls short.
And I think what's happening though, and I had this conversation.
And the fact that he's a douchebag doesn't help his cause, I think.
Yeah, but I also think when we look at the past couple of years, these guys getting in, and when you're talking about real good players and solid players, Harold Baines and Craig Biggio, are they Hall of Famers?
They are not.
No, they're not Hall of Famers. So I
They're
think
compilers.
And I think what the Major League Baseball is facing, and same thing, and I'll touch base on a point in 2 seconds about this. If there was going to go, do they want to have just one guy go into the Hall of Fame? No. That kind of, that'll rain on the Hall of Fame ceremony and so forth. And I think that's what it's come to. That's why these borderline, less than borderline guys, not taking away anything from Harold Baines, but is he a Hall of Famer?
No.
Willie Mays, that's a Hall of Famer. Stan Musial, that's a Hall of Famer. These are guys that, Johnny Bench, Hall of Famer. Then why doesn't Thurman Munson get in? Why doesn't Ron Guidry get in if we're talking about borderline guys? Don Mattingly. And as much as I love all three of those guys,
They're not Hall of Fame.
they're not Hall of Famers.
And they're, three of our favorite players of all time.
Right, and Don Mattingly not being in the Hall of Fame and Craig Biggio being in the Hall of Fame, to me, it doesn't make sense. And I think that's what it's come to. So next year we're going to be sitting here talking about it again. That Curt Schilling gets in, and
Well, next
some
year-
other, maybe Larry Walker gets in.
Next year, number 2 is eligible, and I'm telling you right now that Rivera set the bar as unanimous, you can bet the farm Derek Jeter will be a unanimous choice.
That's exactly what's going to happen. And if you
And
want,
well deserved too.
no question about it. No question. That's a Hall of Fame.
Right, absolutely.
And that's just not a compiler. That's not just
His
padding his
resume
numbers.
speaks for itself. Hall of Fame and unanimous.
And I think this is the same kind of thing that's going on in the NFL. When we talk about, and we go back and we can talk about some of the great players that played this game, and and like I said, we're going to have Joe Klecko on this show come hell or high water at some point,
Yes, we
because
are.
if Jason Taylor and Howie Long and
Dan Hampton.
and Warren Sapp and Dan Hampton are in the Hall of Fame, you really have to question, who was casting their ballots here? Does anybody know what's going on in this league? To put that next to Bob Lilly and Bruce Smith and Reggie White,
Alan Page and
if Jason Taylor belongs in the Hall of Fame,
Joe Green. Right?
doesn't Fred Dreyer belong in the Hall of Fame? I mean, And people will go, "What? The guy from the TV show? Yeah, that guy."
Right.
But he was every bit as good as Jason Taylor.
That means Mark Gastineau should be in the Hall.
I know. I mean, so we're getting to a point where we're almost minimizing, and there's going to be a few players, and like I said, Bonds and Clemens, the whole steroid area, and I get it, and I'm fine with that because I kind of missed a lot of that.
And listening to the media, it doesn't sound like those two are getting in. They got 3 more years of eligibility, and I think they need to climb 16% more to get to the threshold.
And I think what's happening, and somebody may actually, I don't remember whether it was who made the point, but somebody said what's happening is the older riders are dying off,
Right.
the younger riders are coming in, and they were not even aware. They don't even know what the steroid era was all about.
Right.
So if you just look at the numbers, of course both of them belong in the Hall of Fame.
They're both unanimous.
Right. And, but I think it's tainted.
Ability-wise, of course they're tainted.
Right.
We admit that.
But guys like Palmeiro will never get in because he's associated with it. Sosa, these guys won't get in. McGuire, they don't belong in there.
Of them all, though, I still say Sammy Sosa is the most overrated and the biggest poster child for this steroid era.
I think
Sammy
McGuire
Sosa,
just as equal.
Not
just
as bad
much.
as Sammy Sosa. I'll go on record. Sammy Sosa is a complete joke, just an absolute joke, and was fueled by steroids. And again, Major League Baseball turned their eyes to the '98 race, and we could go on and we could do a show on
But
it.
time has, time has a way of erasing people's memories and so forth. So ultimately, you can't not have a
All
guy.
he did was hit home runs because of the steroids. He was not a baseball player. He was terrible.
Bonds would have hit 600 home runs anyway.
Barry Bonds was
No.
on his way to
But
be
McGuire-
a top 5 all time.
But
without
McGuire
steroids.
wouldn't have hit 70 without
Absolutely,
steroids.
I agree with that.
I mean,
Yeah, I agree.
So, those guys, but Clemens and Clemens before the whole steroid era was as dominant a pitcher
Roger
of his
Clemens
time.
was as dominant as he was the first pitch he threw in his career to,
Yeah.
20 years later.
So there's a lot of speculation here, but I think we're on the same page. There's no question Rivera belongs in. Mussina I don't have a problem with. Halladay I think got in a little early, and Edgar
I was
Martinez.
just going to say, we're forgetting about Edgar.
Right, and I was giving that a lot of thought, saying does a designated hitter belong in consideration? And I said, you know what? I used to think no, like he was kind of a part-time player, but I kind of have thought a little bit differently lately, saying there were a lot of great hitters that got in the league that were mediocre fielders, if not lousy fielders. This guy was as toughing out, and if you can ask Mike Mussina how tough this guy was to get out. Ask Roy Halladay.
Ask Mariano Rivera.
Exactly.
Probably the only guy. I mean, his average against him was off the charts.
Right, probably the
One of those
highest average against Mariano.
One of those
Rivera.
uncanny things where.
So I'm gonna tell you, I have changed my thoughts, and he was that good of a hitter during his generation, and he waited. Look, he waited. This was his last year, so I think he got in, but I think he deserved to get in.
I agree with you 100% because the DH has been around since
73.
Right, Ron Bloomberg, number 1, right,
Yep.
the first guy, etc.
That's right.
That has been part of the American League for decades now, right? And he is the standard bearer,
No
I believe,
question.
when it comes. I think even the award now, the best DH, is named after him. And we just talked about Harold Baines. What was Harold Baines, really? He was an outfielder, I get it, but Harold Baines, probably for the last 10 years of his career,
Right.
is now in the Hall of Fame. And if he wasn't a designated hitter for 10 years and compiled the stats that he did, he wouldn't be there.
Yep.
Edgar Martinez, I think, top of my head, 310 career average.
Maybe 315
Big,
tops.
right? Big spots. The big hit against the Yankees in the '95.
Oh, he had big hits
And on
against
and on.
everyone.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I
the
don't,
DH is part of baseball.
and I don't have a problem with
And
him
I
getting
really
in.
think he is well deserving of being in the Hall of Fame. And he waited. And was this his last year on
Yes,
the
it
ballot?
was. It was his last
So
year.
maybe that factored into it a little bit. But you can't deny his stats. I think he's well deserving. And I think this year's class, I really can't dispute the selections this year, like in years past.
All right. Well, like I said, I just think that that's getting a little bit diluted, if you will, with to think that these are the same guys, with Ruth and Gehrig and Williams and Musial and Cobb and so forth. It's hard for me, but it's a different generation,
That's
different
what I
people
was
of
just
watching.
gonna say. Those that are coming on the ballot, that have been on the ballot for 5, 6, 7 years. There's some names out there that it's a complete joke. They get 5%.
And I can go back and say, listen, not you and nor I watched Babe Ruth, but we know how dominant they were, the Cobbs and so forth.
Right.
Mickey Mantle and Willie Mays, we were fortunate to see the tail ends of their career.
Mm-hmm.
And so forth, and then we got to see, this next generation and so forth, and
We got to see Henry Aaron at his last stage. I mean,
right.
And again, the argument and the standard is, when you think of the Hall of Fame, do you automatically associate that player with, he's a Hall of Famer?
Right.
He's a Hall of Famer, he's a Hall of Famer. And then that's the gray area that we're discussing now, and that's what debate's about.
And in 10 years, someone's going to say Harold Baines. Is he in the Hall of Fame? But when you say Babe Ruth or Lou Gehrig, of course he's in the Hall of Fame. I mean,
And now even Mariano Rivera
Right.
is in that company with the big shots.
So listen, this was some good stuff. I'm glad you joined us, Steve, on this
Appreciate
show.
it.
And
Good to be here.
I look forward to Steve being more of a frequent participant in our show and stuff. And hope Dougie gets back from his assignment and looks forward, because it'll be part of our Super Bowl wrap-up talk show next week. We could talk about the Australian Open, but I think we've covered enough NFL and Major League Baseball with the topics. We'll touch base on the Australian Open. It seems like on the women's side, again, it's always wide open. Serena lost, Danielle Collins, American, and on the men's side, usual suspects. Djokovic, Nadal, no surprise there.
Your boy Fed went down.
I've said, listen, as much as I've loved him, I think he's on the tail end of his career.
But the kid he lost to, or did I read something like the first Greek or something to advance to whatever, a quarterfinal, a semifinal?
Right, but that's indicative of the tail end of someone's
I get
career.
it, absolutely. I'm not knocking Federer, the guy who's an all-time.
He's going to make one more run at the Wimbledon, the U.S. Open, and that'll be it. But before we go, again, real quick shout out to our sponsors who have been quite loyal to us. Lynch Toyota of Manchester, Connecticut, Harley Davidson of Utica, and DeFilippi's Bakery of Monticello, New York. They've been loyal supporters of our show, and we appreciate it, and they would appreciate your patronage. So thanks for joining, Steve. Thanks for
Jim.
joining.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
And we'll talk to you guys next week. Thanks.